Now, those fresh strikes by the U.S. and Iran in the Strait of Hormuz are threatening a month-old ceasefire. The U.S. Central Command says it carried out retaliatory strikes on Iranian military facilities. It says the targets were responsible for attacking American forces. Mr. Trump yesterday said Navy destroyers crossing the Strait of Hormuz came under Iranian attack. Washington has warned its blockade on Iranian ports remains even after President Donald Trump suspended an operation to escort vessels through the channel. Iran accusing the U.S. of violating the ceasefire, saying American forces targeted an Iranian-flagged tanker and carried out airstrikes on civilian areas. Multiple explosions were reportedly heard in the port of Bandar Abbas and Qasem Island. Tehran announcing retaliatory strikes on U.S. military vessels east of the Strait of Hormuz. The confrontation even spreading beyond the key waterway. The UAE now saying its air defenses were engaging missiles and drone threats from Iran in the early hours of today. The U.S. president, meanwhile, maintaining that the truce, which came into effect on the 7th of April, still holds. Washington is awaiting Tehran's response to its latest proposal. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio expecting that response by today. Well, our correspondents have been monitoring all those developments for CNA. Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. Blake Sifton standing by in Tel Aviv. Nick, first to you. Is there reason to still be optimistic of an answer to those negotiations today following this latest round of attacks?
Well, Jill, we are in this strange situation where the two sides have exchanged fire, each accusing the other of firing first. But at the same time, the US is saying that that ceasefire is still in place and that negotiations are still ongoing. The Trump administration maintains that these were defensive strikes, that they were in response to the attacks on US ships, and therefore the US says it doesn't mean that the hot war is back on. Donald Trump even dismissed all of this, the latest flare-up, as a mere trifle, in his words. But the threats are still there, and Donald Trump has been warning that there will be a lot of pain if Iran doesn't sign the deal. We also know that the US still has those 3 aircraft carrier strike groups in the region. It's the strongest US military presence in decades, and really the US is using that navy as leverage to try and force Iran to make a deal. But also, there is the case that the president would be able to start hostilities very, very easily if he decided to, just because the Navy are still there. So, are we any closer to a deal? Well, Marco Rubio in the last hour has been speaking about this. He says that we're likely to hear from Iran during the course of today. That's in response to the one-page proposal. And when asked about the possibility of a deal, Donald Trump said it might not happen, but it could happen any day. So very mixed messaging there from the president in the very same sentence. Essentially, the president doesn't really seem to know what will happen. And I guess the problem is, how will Iran interpret these latest strikes? Will they see it as a push to sign the deal? Or, on the other hand, will it make them less inclined to make a deal and perhaps put them on a war footing rather than on the path to peace? All of that remains very unclear. I think the biggest indication will be what they say to that proposal and if we hear about it today.
Yeah, indeed. Blake, while this all goes on, meanwhile, others are being caught in the net, and the UAE seems to find itself a target, again, of reportedly Iranian attacks. What's the situation there? How's it handling it?
Good evening, Jill. Well, just hours after the U.S. struck those targets in Iran, Emirati authorities announced that the country was once again under attack from Iranian drones and missiles. They urged the public to seek shelter, and they clarified that the sounds of booms being heard across the country were from the successful interception of those aerial threats by air defenses. Just in the last hour or so, they've announced that 3 people were moderately injured in that attack. They said it included 3 drones and 2 ballistic missiles. There's no information at this stage what the target was. Now, today's attack, of course, follows an attack on Monday involving 15 Iranian missiles and drones that targeted the emirate of Fujairah and a key oil facility there. That sits at the end of a vital oil pipeline that crosses the UAE and bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. And Emirati authorities were reportedly very upset with the United States for appearing to downplay the severity of that attack and suggesting that it wasn't serious enough to constitute a violation of the ceasefire. We should remember that among Gulf countries, the United Arab Emirates was the worst hit by Iranian drones and missiles, and they have reportedly sought assistance from Israel to counter that threat. And according to reports, there is now an Israeli Iron Dome air defense battery based in the UAE, along with Israeli soldiers to operate it.
Interesting stuff. Thank you so much, Blake Sifton, reporting live there from Tel Aviv. And Nick Harper, thank you to you from Washington, D.C.